Hello and welcome, fellow digital soldiers, to True Reporting. It is the 21st of March, and on today's podcast, we will be covering an article entitled 12 Huge Bombshells in 1 Week, but Nothing's Happening. Before we get into this, my friends, a lot of Q posts yesterday. We will be going over those in a podcast later on tonight that I will be releasing tomorrow. But before we get into any of that, would you please go ahead and click the bell to get notifications so when I post to this channel, you'll be the first to know. Also, please follow me on Twitter at True Reporting. We're about to hit 10,000 followers. That's a milestone, and I'm looking forward to it. And don't forget to leave a like on this video. The more likes that this video receives, the more times that it is recommended to other viewers, thus more eyes on the truth. And with that being said, my friends, let's expose the darkness together. This is True Reporting. Right here we see 12 huge damning bombshells dropped this week, spinning this storm into high gear. From the Lisa Page transcripts to McCain's connection to the dossier, a grand jury investigation into Facebook, massive NXIVM updates, Jeffrey Epstein back on the chopping block, and Andrew Wiseman leaving special counsel. And while Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was preparing her audition for her role as Congresswoman for New York, Paul Ryan was sabotaging Democrat subpoenas. Meanwhile, Hollywood's being sliced and diced for paying off colleagues at an Ivy League school to get their children admitted. Of course, this is only the beginning of investigations into nefarious acts taking place in the upper echelons of colleagues. And it's safe to say, politicians will surely make the list. Who could forget the terrorist training camp discovered in New Mexico last year, where they had loads of guns and ammunition, along with a deceased child? The court dismissed 3 of the 5, creating one hell of a stir in this country. Now, there is a superseding indictment charging all 5 with conspiracy to attack and kill officers and employees of the United States, along with multiple other charges. While Congressman Jim Jordan, the man I might add, was busy calling out Adam Schiff in a Twitter frenzy this week, the Democrats, along with 12 Republicans, voted to block the president's emergency at the southern border, which Trump immediately vetoed the following day in his first veto as president. But nothing's happening, right? Buckle up, this party is just getting started. 12 huge bombshells. This is for your normie friends, and if you aren't aware of it. Number 1, the NXIVM sex cult superseding indictment and Nancy Salzman plea deal. Now, we know that from all of these Q posts that have been coming out about Ray Chandler, the photographer, with all the Pizzagate, pedophilia pictures, sex trafficking, spirit cooking, you name it, this is where it's going to come from. It's going to come from Jeffrey Epstein's trial, and it's going to come from NXIVM, and it's all going to come crashing down. So, it was very telling week in the NXIVM case. For those who are still not familiar with this case, get familiar. There are a lot of top players involved who connect with countless other big league players, and it's all about controlling the system, manipulating and blackmailing high-ranking individuals and corporations, as well as a child sex trafficking and female adults being branded after sexual interactions with their harem leader, Keith Raniere. Some big updates dropped this week with Nancy Salzman. NXIVM's president pleaded guilty to 1 count of racketeering conspiracy. After agreeing to this plea deal, the plea deal comes with her cooperation with the federal government in this case, and she could also be facing up to 41 months in prison. Her sentencing will not take place until July 10th. She admitted in court that she obtained passwords and usernames to monitor NXIVM enemies and members suspected of being moles. Oh, wow. Her daughter, Laura Salzman, is also charged in this case and is facing up to 20 years in prison. Sadly, Nancy brought her daughter into the NXIVM life when she was just a child, and Laura, like her mother, were both part of this harem. She spent her adult life as a top leader in NXIVM while awaiting Raniere to impregnate her, which never happened. On Wednesday evening, following the guilty plea of Nancy Salzman, new allegations against Keith Raniere were announced in a superseding indictment by federal prosecutors. They alleged that NXIVM had a smaller group known as DOS, where women extorted recruits into unpaid labor and sexual relationships with Raniere, hence a sex cult. They also accused Raniere of having sexual relations with 2 underage girls one of which became his first-line slave in DOS. In addition, they allege he coerced a minor to engage in sexually explicit conduct for the purpose of producing one or more visual depictions of such conduct. In other words, he produced child pornography. Finally, an article that actually gets down to it. I'm sick of talking about minors. It's not minors. It's pedophilia. It's child pornography, my friends. Prosecutors claim they have communications between the girl and Rainier as well as images. They also state that other defendants in the case were aware of and facilitated Rainier's sexual relationships with 2 underage victims. There were 4 additional racketeering acts in the superseding indictment for Keith Rainier. 1 alleging visa fraud, 1 alleging possession of child pornography, and 2 alleging sexual exploitation of a child. Mack, Bronfman, and Lauren also have 1 count of racketeering added to their charges. Smallville actress Allison Mack also has charges against her for sex trafficking of children or by force, fraud of coercion, conspiracy to commit sex trafficking of children by force, fraud, or coercion, and attempted to establish peonage, slavery, involuntary servitude, and human trafficking. This lady's a monster. But remember, Q told us that Ray Chandler is 100 times worse. It's hard to believe, my friends. These people are sick. Seagram's heiress, Claire Bronfman, and Kathy Russell are also charged in this case, and future indictments of others may take place as the trial date nears. The NXIVM trial is scheduled to begin on April 29th, 2019. Number 2, Facebook under criminal investigation. As New York grand jury has subpoenaed 2 well-known smartphone makers for records relating to this investigation, federal prosecutors are investigating Facebook's data sharing deals with large technology companies. Facebook had data sharing arrangements with more than 150 companies, which benefited both Facebook to gain more users and the companies to gain access to other users' data. Remember, this is all DARPA. This is all weaponized. Every form of social media is weaponized. Facebook was already being investigated nearly a year ago for the Cambridge Analytica scandal, whereby they obtained personal data from up to 87 million Americans. It seems the investigations have continued and escalated. Number 3, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, a hired actress with socialist handlers. Mr. Reagan published a video on social media breaking down how Alexandria was one of many actresses auditioning for Justice Democrats, an organization that recruits actresses to run for political positions so that they can fulfill their agenda. Titled, "The Real Brains Behind Alexandria Cortez." He reveals that Justice Democrats held auditions in 2017 for potential congressional candidates. They wanted to run on their platform. They put out a casting call in 2016, and AOC's brothers submitted her for a nomination. Alexandria Rojas, executive director for the Justice Democrats, conveyed that they had received over 10,000 nominations, and out of those, they found Alexandria. They don't even try to hide this. AOC has no political background whatsoever. We can see that with her IQ, low IQ. So who's running the show and pulling the strings for her social media platforms, interviews, and documents being drafted up? AOC is a puppet congresswoman with dangerous handlers, including Saket Shikabarty, and the mastermind behind it all, YUUUGE. This video is packed full of evidence, and anyone who has followed AOC can easily make these connections. Her staff has extremely socialist agenda. This video spread like wildfire, reaching over 1.5 million views in under a week, as well as mainstream news. This is a must-watch, and I'll leave this description of this entire article in the description box below. AOC's chief of staff, Saket Shikabarty, saw this video for himself and responded in a Twitter thread, claiming that AOC writes her own speeches, controls her own social media, isn't coached, and is a very intelligent woman who can talk about policy issues in depth for hours, because she really knows what she's talking about. He also says he makes these claims. He is facing an FEC complaint filed against him alleging that he funneled nearly $1 million in contributions from political action committees that he established to private companies that he also controlled. Money laundering, right? Number 4. Ex-FBI Lisa Page revealing transcripts released. The House Judiciary Committee Republicans released 205 pages of transcripts from ex-FBI attorney Lisa Page's closed-door interview last year. Social media platforms quickly propagated with numerous discrepancies between her testimony and others who had testified, throwing timelines into the wind, revealing a text that indicated there was an insurance policy against then-candidate Donald Trump. Her testimony also indicated the Obama administration role in letting Hillary Clinton off the hook for her alleged handling of classified information. That's what's most interesting is her statement in the transcript regarding agents also criticizing former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, as reported by the Washington Post. In quotes, "Many of us in law enforcement dislike the subject of our investigations. We are not keen on pedophiles and fraudsters and spies and human traffickers, and that is fine. What would be impermissible is to take that harsh language and to act in some way that was illegal or against the rules, and we don't do it." Even President Trump chimed in on the release and added much more to come, leaving many hopeful that additional declassified documents will drop soon. The FBI just released it just says they just revealed FBI agent Lisa Page transcripts make the Obama Justice Department look exactly like what it was, a broken and corrupt machine. Hopefully justice will finally be served. Much more to come. A tweet from Donald Trump. Number 5. Late Senator McCain's role in the Spygate scandal. Jeff Carlson, a journalist for Epoch Times, I suggest following it, and they're great, dropped a doozy of a report on Friday regarding David Kramer's unsealed deposition, who is a longtime associate of the late Senator John McCain. Kramer had contact with at least 14 members of the media regarding the Steele dossier, unverified allegations against Donald Trump during his campaign. Also, Carlson took to Twitter to lay out the timeline from his report, indicating McCain's ties as well as others. It says here, David Kramer provided updates to Fusion GPS co-founder Glenn Simpson, former MI6 spy, and dossier author Christopher Steele, and other members of the media regarding McCain's meeting with the FBI Director James Comey. Kramer revealed he had contact with at least 14 members of the media regarding the Steele dossier. The contacts are included in the report. Kramer gave a full copy of the unverified dossier to National Security Council member Celeste Wallander, Representative Adam Kinzinger, and Speaker Paul Ranks, COS. Jonathan Burks. He confirmed he was a BuzzFeed news source for the dossier that BuzzFeed published on January 10, 2017. McCain denied providing a copy of the dossier to BuzzFeed. Steele had produced a final memo dated December 13, 2016. According to the UK court documents, Kramer, on behalf of McCain, had asked Steele to provide any further intelligence that he had gathered relating to the alleged Russian interference in the U.S. presidential election. Notably, it appears it was a request from McCain that led Steele to produce this December 13th memo. Although Kramer did not provide a date, he said he received the final Steele memo sometime after Senator McCain had provided the dossier to Director Comey. Kramer showed a copy of the dossier to BuzzFeed's news reporter Ken Bissinger on December 29, 2016, during a meeting at the McCain Institute, which was closed for the holiday that entire week. Kramer testified that Bissinger asked me if I could take the photos of them on his, I assume it was an iPhone. I asked him to not to. He said he was a slow reader. He wanted to read it, and I said so. You know, I got a phone call to make it, and I had to go to the bathroom, he says. On January 5, 2017, Obama held an undisclosed White House meeting to discuss the ICA and the attached summation of the dossier, with National Security Advisor Susan Rice, Director James Comey, Deputy Attorney General Sally Yates. All of these pictures were coming out from Q, remember? A couple days ago. The following day, Comey then met with President-elect Trump to inform him of the dossier. Comey would only inform Trump of the salacious details contained within the dossier. Shortly after Comey's meeting with Trump, both the meeting and the existence of the dossier were leaked to CNN. Comey, in quotes, media like CNN had them and were looking for the news hook. I said it was important that we not give them the excuse to write that the FBI had the material. On January 10th, CNN disclosed the existence of the dossier in Comey's briefing. Immediately following the CNN story, BuzzFeed published the Steele dossier. When this happened, Kramer said, and quote, "I believe my words were holy shit." Kramer had been meeting with The Guardian's Julian Borger when CNN reported on the dossier, and he quickly spoke with Steele, who was shocked. The following day, January 11th, Clapper issued a statement condemning the leaks, without revealing the fact that he was the source of the leak to CNN. In August 2017, CNN hired Clapper as its national security analyst. They're all in cahoots. Number 6, this is a big one, my friends. Federal court moves to unseal documents in Jeffrey Epstein's alleged trafficking operation. I have covered this on other podcasts, maybe 2 weeks ago. A lot of stuff. This is where it is going to happen. There's definitely an information shift. This is on to another phase. On Monday, a federal court of appeals in New York gave multimillionaire Jeffrey Epstein and his former partner Ghislaine Maxwell until March 19th to establish good cause as why the documents from their prior case should remain sealed. If they fail to do so, the summary judgment and the supporting documents will be made public. The court also reserved a ruling on additional documents in the civil case, which includes discovery materials. Epstein was accused by more than 30 women, girls actually, most between the ages of 13 and 16, all pedophiles. This is what they do. They're all pedophiles. Of being lured to his mansion for sex acts. According to the Miami Herald, and I've covered this in another podcast, court and police records show that he then used the same girls to recruit more girls over a period of several years. Just a few weeks ago, on February 22nd, a federal judge ruled that the deal made back in 2008 was illegal because former Miami U.S. Attorney Alexander Acosta kept it from Epstein's victims, which is in violation of the Crime Victims' Right Act. He was keeping all this information and the trial away from the victims so that they couldn't testify. They concealed a plea agreement from more than 30 underage victims who had been sexually abused. In a 33-page opinion, Judge Mara said, in quote, "Prosecutors not only violated the Crime Victims' Rights Act by not informing the victims, they also misled the girls into believing that the FBI sex trafficking case against Epstein was still ongoing, when in fact prosecutors had secretly closed it after sealing the plea bargain from the public records. Epstein worked in concert with others to obtain minors not only for his own sexual gratification, but also for sexual gratification of others. This 2008 plea deal gave Epstein and untold number of others who weren't named immunity from federal prosecution. This non-prosecution agreement is now a big focus of the Justice Department's investigation." We'll go to number 7. Pitbull Andrew Wiseman is leaving special counsel. Thursday, big story was that Mueller may be wrapping up his report, being as Wiseman will be stepping down. According to Sarah Carter's report, Wiseman was handpicked by Mueller to join the special counsel's office investigation into the alleged collusion of obstruction between Russia and Trump's presidential campaign in 2016. For anyone who has heard defense attorney Sidney Powell speak on Wiseman's tactics or read her book, it is quite evident that Wiseman needs to be investigated. Powell has stated that Wiseman destroyed evidence in the Arthur Anderson case. Despite this, Powell won the case against Wiseman in the Supreme Court, but only after they had destroyed the company's reputation. It seems Wiseman is a dirty player and has been reported to the Department of Justice Inspector General and Senate Judiciary Committee, as well as reprimanded for withholding evidence in past years. While on the special counsel for Mueller, he was directly involved with the prosecution of Paul Manafort. As of Friday morning, Republican lawmakers requested documents, communications, and questions answered regarding both Wiseman and his colleague, DOJ prosecutor Zainab Ahmad. This is all due to Bruce Orr's testimony regarding the Russia-Trump probe, where he testified that he had met with Wiseman and Ahmad in the summer of 2016. To alert them that the anti-Trump dossier had not been vetted and that Steele was extremely biased against Trump. On March 1st, lawmakers sent a 7-page letter to Attorney General William Barr requesting information about actions taken or not taken by Wiseman and Ahmad after they met with Bruce Orr. So, my friends, This is crazy. Number 8, 50 big names charged or indicted in college admissions pay off scheme. We all know about this. I've covered it, so I won't go through the whole thing. But it says here, if you were unaware, the story broke on Tuesday with the U.S. Attorney's Office in Boston describing it as the largest college admission scam ever prosecuted in the country. This is a $25 million scam that involves actors, actresses, exam administrators, athletic coaches, corporate giants, wealthy connected parents, highly ranking lawyers, real estate modules, and a media company owner, all buying their children's way into colleges. So, yeah, and when they were buying their way into colleges, they were actually slipping in before people who actually were going to go to that school were pushed out of they were pushed out of the way. They didn't get into the school. People who had autism, people who had disabilities, who were really smart, people who were minorities, these rich people slid their kid in there and pushed everyone else who was rightfully eligible to get into this school out of the way, and they did not get in. Paul Ryan blocks subpoenas of Democrats. Number 9. On Wednesday, Breitbart News published an article reporting on the exclusive interviews with President Trump in the Oval Office. Trump told Breitbart News that Ryan blocked insurance of subpoenas to people he thinks should have been investigated on the political left, and because Republicans no longer had the majority in the House. Ryan protected people that may have gotten away with whatever they did that warranted an investigation. Trump also told Breitbart that he believes the left plays a tougher game, even though he thinks that the people on the right are tougher. Number 10, New Mexico terrorist camp superseding indictment finally. Most will recall the horrific terrorist training camp discovered last year in New Mexico, where a group resided in a filthy situation filled with firearms, ammunition, and a deceased child. We all remember that, don't we? They were originally indicted on September 11, 2018, and 2 judges dismissed the charges against 3 of the defendants because the Office of the District Attorney, Donald Gallegos, failed to schedule a court hearing to prove that they had probable cause for their arrest within 10 days. Everyone could see with their own eyes that this was a terrorist training camp and feared the worst, and these guys got off. On Wednesday, a federal jury sitting in Albuquerque, New Mexico, returned a superseding indictment on March 13th, charging Janie Lavelle, 36, Wanahaj, 40, Hurja Wanahaj, 38. It seems like these are all brothers, and Lucas Morton, 41, with federal offenses relating to terrorism, kidnapping, and firearms violations. The Department of Justice press release states in part. As alleged in the superseding indictment, these defendants conspired to provide material support and preparation for violent attacks against officers and employees of the United States. The superseding indictment also charges Lavelle, Wajad, and Morton with conspiracy to attack and kill officers and employees of the United States in violation. This is crazy. All of the defendants transported people, firearms, and ammunition across state lines and constructed a training compound. They were kidnapping and had conspiracy to commit kidnapping. Kidnapped a child under the age of 18 in Georgia and transported the child to New Mexico, where they concealed and held the child, resulting in the child's death. The superseding indictment also includes the charges from the original indictment. All of the defendants are currently in custody awaiting trial. Perhaps this will set precedent in the investigating the 22 Islamic compounds operating throughout the U.S. that the FBI document confirms. Number 11, Jim Jordan grills Adam Schiff in classic social media style. On Tuesday, in a series of tweets, Congressman Jim Jordan, representative of Ohio, fired at Congressman Adam Schiff, the Democrat of California, regarding Schiff and his staff prepping Michael Cohen before his hearing, failing to disclose his meeting with Glenn Simpson in Aspen, falsely claim in his memo that Bruce Orr hadn't communicated his relationship with Christopher Steele to the FBI prior to the 2016 election, and question why Schiff tried to block Congress from learning that the Clinton campaign paid for the dossier. That's quite a list. So it says here, Jim Jordan's tweets. Why did Adam Schiff say that he's talked with Michael Cohen and they were limited to inviting him and allaying any concerns about threats to his family, but not mentioning the 14 hours his staff spent prepping Cohen before the hearing? Why did Adam Schiff fail to disclose that he met with Glenn Simpson, whose dossier opposition research was funded by the Clinton campaign in Aspen? Why did Adam Schiff falsely claim in his memo that Bruce Orr hadn't communicated with his relationship with Christopher Steele to the FBI prior to the 2016 election? And why did Adam Schiff try to block Congress from learning that the Clinton campaign paid for the dossier? Number 12, Democrats and 12 Republicans voted to block border emergency. Trump vetoed it. Here are the 12 Republican defectors. This was a loyalty test, and that's what I tweeted out. That this was not just a veto. This was to show who on the Republican side is going to be loyal to Trump. So, moving forward, it says, immediately following the vote, President Trump tweeted, I look forward to vetoing the just passed Democrat-inspired resolution which would open borders while increasing crime, drugs, and trafficking in our country. I thank all of the strong Republicans who voted to support border security and a desperately needed wall. Update. The critical news hit late Friday after the article was already written. Therefore, it is being included as number 13. Former Defense Intelligence Officer pleads guilty to spying for China. Former Defense Intelligence Agency DIA operative Ron Rockwell Hansen pleaded guilty on Friday, March 15, 2019 in the District of Utah. Again, remember Huber. They also have the death penalty in Utah in connection with his attempted transmission of national defense information to the People's Republic of China. Hansen retired from the U.S. Army as a warrant officer with a background in signal intelligence and human intelligence. DIA hired Hansen as a civilian intelligence case officer in 2006 and had held a top-secret clearance for many years. On June 2nd, 2018, Hansen received the solicited documents containing national defense information from the case officer. The classified information contained documents related to the United States military readiness in a particular region. Hansen took notes, put some of it into memory, and then concealed the notes about the material in the text of an electronic document that he was planning to prepare at the airport before heading to China. He knew the information he planned on turning over to the Chinese intelligence was to be used in the injury of the United States. Hansen, 58, of Syracuse, Utah, pleaded guilty to one count of attempting to gather or deliver national defense information to aid a foreign government. The plea agreement has agreed upon a sentencing of 15 years, and his sentencing is set for September 24th. This week's manipulation tactics in the news, my friends. So, again, these are the top 12 things that are happening. We are moving forward, like I said. This is a new phase with all this sex crime information coming out. Epstein, Ray Chandler, Nexium. I believe we're going to get the insurance file off of Anthony Weiner's laptop. Could that be the HRC video? I think a lot of this is coming out, my friends. If you found this podcast informative and you enjoyed it, my friends, please subscribe to my channel. You can also follow me on Twitter at True Reporting, and don't forget to leave a like. Please, my friends, if you are financially able to, you can go and donate to this channel and keep it afloat by going to my PayPal or my Patreon in the description box below. Be kind and loving to one another, my friends, and expect many more podcasts. Have a wonderful Friday, and I will talk to you soon. Good night.